This is a Sikha on Ha'ara number 26 on Chelek Zayin, the Sikha of Tetzaveh Zayin Adar. So the Rabbi brings in the Sikha that we'll understand. The Rabbi is going to explain the same way that when Av comes in, we decrease in Simcha. Similarly, when the month of Adar comes in, we increase in Simcha. And the Rabbi says we should be mevarer, we should find out, we should try and analyze the inyan of Marbim Besimcha in a leap year. When will that apply? And then there's Ha'ara 26. And the Rebbe says this concept, Mishenichnas Adar Marbim Besimcha, is brought in the Mogen Avraham on the laws of Megillah. Siman Tov Reish Pei Vav. And already there's been a Shakle V'Tayr, there's already been a discussion about the reason that the Rambam and the Torah and Shulchan Aruch don't bring it down. And then the Rebbe says, see what was said about it in the Tshuvas of the Chassam Sofer, and what the Nimukei Erechaim, the Buchach, the Rebbe of Munkach, the Minchas Elazar of Munkach, what he says about it, and see Likutei Sichos Chelek Yud Aleph, there's in the back, in the Hisofis, in the Ha'ara, and at length in the Sikha of Purim and Shabbos Parshas Tisa, Tafshin Lamed Aleph. I would be very grateful if somebody would point out why here it says that it's in Shabbos Parshas Tisa Tafshin Lamed Aleph. I seem to have found it in Vayakal Tafshin Lamed Aleph, the Hezber, and but anyway. So let me. I figured let me explain this a little bit, because I found it personally very fascinating. Mishenichnas Adar Marbim Besimcha is something that's fantastic. Who doesn't like being Besimcha? And the question is just a very, very compelling question. Such a Gemara Mefureshes, Mishenichnas Adar Marbim Besimcha, why is Erst in the Magen Avraham it's brought? Now, when you even hear the question, if you're like me and you've grown up with, I made a bracha before, if you've grown up with the concept of Mishenichnas Adar Marbim Besimcha, you think it's, of course it's in Shulchan Aruch. But it's not in the Rambam, not in the Shulchan Aruch. The Magen Avraham brings it. Probably Kitzur Shulchan Aruch also. I didn't look that up right now, but I think Kitzur Shulchan Aruch brings that together with the thing that if you have a mishpat, do it in the month of Adar. But why doesn't the Rambam, Shulchan Aruch? So Chassam Sofer proposes as follows. I'm going to make a kitzur. Chassam Sofer says, we know that there is an opinion of Rav. Rav is of the opinion that the whole month of Av needs to be recognized as a month of reducing Simcha. Because he's also of the opinion, by the way, that the Shabbos Chazayin Haftarah is said on Rish Chodesh Av. Now, we say the Shabbos Chazayin Haftarah directly before Tisha B'Av. By us, there's a concept. We pass in the halacha. There's three shittas in the Gemara. We go according to the halacha. The Tisha B'Av, the real Avelus of Tisha B'Av, actually doesn't start from the beginning of the month of Av. It starts from the week of Tisha B'Av, from the Shabbos and up to Tisha B'Av. Tisha B'Av is on Thursday. It starts on Shabbos till Tisha B'Av. Rav was of the opinion, based on a pasuk, the way they learned a pasuk, that it goes through the entire month. So therefore, if Shabbos Rish Chodesh Av is on, you say Shabbos, the thing of Shabbos Chazayin, because that's when the morning begins already. That's how Tosfos explains it. Now, if that's the case, so it's Rav. If you look in the Gemara, that says the Gemara is brought in the name of Rav. That Mishenichnas Adar Marbim, the same way that Mishenichnas of Mematim Besimcha, similarly Mishenichnas Adar Marbim Besimcha. Says the Chassam Sofer, where did Rav learn that by of the whole month? Because there's a word in the pasuk in the Navi that says that Hashem says that He's going to cancel the Chodesh, Chodsha, Shabbata, Chaga, Chodsha. So the whole Chodesh, there's a word that says Chodesh about the destruction, so it goes on the whole Chodesh. So Rav says, Av decrease Simcha. What does it say by the Megillah? By the Megillah it says V'hachodesh asher nepach lohem. So Rav will be of the same opinion. You learn the vart of Chodesh. If you learn Chodesh by the decreasing of Simcha from a pasuk, so take the pasuk in Megillah which speaks about Chodesh when we're talking about Purim, and the whole month becomes Mishenichnas Adar Marbim Besimcha. But that's an opinion of Rav. However, we don't paskin like Rav. The Rambam doesn't paskin like Rav. When it comes to the Haftarahs, we follow the Haftarah. Shabbos, it doesn't start from Shabbos Rish Chodesh Av. We don't say Shabbos Chazayin Haftarah. We don't start the whole Avelus. The Avelus starts on the week of Tisha B'Av. Okay, so we're going to get a little confused because the minig of Avelos, the Ashkenazim, we do start from Rish Chodesh Av in some way, but the serious halachas, when you look at the Machaber, you look at the Shulchan Aruch, it starts from the week of Tisha B'Av. So we don't learn that Chodesh Drasha. If we don't learn that Chodesh Drasha, so we're not going to learn it about Adar as well. So that's the way the Chasam Sofer, the Nekuda, the way the Chasam Sofer explains. It's a Rav, it's based on Rav. Rav learned it by Av, and Rav learned it by Adar. We, Beneged to Av, don't apply the restrictions of Av on the whole month, so we're not going to. So the ramifications for Adar will be that we're not going to apply Adar to the whole month. Okay. Comes the Munkatcher, the Mukei Chaim, and he says, excuse me, he says, the Rambam does bring Mishenichnas of Mematim Besimcha. I think that's what let me see what the Munkatcher have it here, the Mukei Chaim. I did look at it before, sorry. And the Tafresh Pei, the Rebbe says where it is. The Rebbe says it's in Tafresh Pei Vav, yeah. So he asks on that. Just bear with me because it's very geschmack. He says the Var of Temuim. He says about the Chasam Sofer. It's amazing. Temuim. It's questionable because in the end of the day, the Rambam does bring Mishenichnas Av Mematim Besimcha. You try to say the Chasam Sofer that Mishenichnas Av Mematim Besimcha is only according to Rav. Who says that it starts from Rish Chodesh? And we don't paskin that Av starts from Rish Chodesh. V'halaya. If Shabbos Rish Chodesh, we wouldn't say Shabbos Chazayin After. Hello. We do bring Mishenichnas Adar Marbim Besimcha. Means you do learn, according to the Rambam. We do pay attention to the drasha that speaks about the fact that the Simcha has been cancelled out from the Chodesh, the pasuk that says Chodesh in the Puranusa, in the Nevuah of destruction. So that would mean that we should also learn about Adar. We should look at the word V'hachodesh and apply it from the beginning of Chodesh Adar, right? So the Chasam Sofer didn't really provide an answer, says the Munkatcher. There's a long arichas in the Chasam Sofer and in the Munkatcher about going to a court case but that's a different. We're not going to go there. Just stick on the Marbim Besimcha. Says the Munkatcher, I thought to answer. I wanted to propose the following answer. Why does the Rambam not say Mishenichnas Adar Marbim Besimcha? So first of all, I wrote in my other Sefer Shar Yisachar, says the Munkatcher. Why does the Gemara say the Mishenichnas Adar Marbim Besimcha? And then when he tells you Mematim Besimcha, he says exactly what to do. Don't build buildings of joy. And there's a lot of restrictions. When Chodesh Av comes, we know what to do. We know what we have to decrease in. The Gemara tells us, Allah tells us. But when Adar comes in, there's no instruction. What should you do when the month of Adar comes in? Buy popsicles. It doesn't say what to do. So why doesn't the Gemara give us some instructions? It should have said how. And the Munkatcher says, I explained in my other Sefer that that's the point. And the Rebbe brings this Munkatcher, this Nekuda. That's the point. When Av comes in, you have to decrease in joy, but Chas v'Shalom to get to Atzvus. A Yid always have to be Avodas Hashem Besimcha. So the Halacha has to classify what in Yanim do you decrease in. Don't build a binyan shel Simcha, don't do this. But everything else has to be Besimcha. However, when it comes to the month of Adar, right? Comes to the month of Adar, it's a chiyuv minatayr tachas asher levatrecha besimcha. So, he's saying for sure you can't be ba'atzvus. You always have to be avodas Hashem, even in Av. When it comes to Adar, Marbim Besimcha doesn't have to tell you how. Miru b'midatayva. Whatever can bring you simcha, you got to do. The month of Adar behooves us to be besimcha. We don't have to tell you how to be besimcha. Whatever brings you besimcha, you do. You're right. Und be'emes mitzvah, says the Munkatcher, mitzvah b'chol ma de'efshe laharbeis beliba you be inyana besimcha shel mitzvah. It's a mitzvah. However you can increase the joy in your heart, do it and fulfill the words of the Chachamim. So that's why it doesn't tell you. It just says Mishenichnas Adar Marbim Besimcha. Doesn't have to tell you how. The Gemara, when it tells you Mishenichnas Av, the Gemara and the Rambam, they have to tell you exactly how to reduce your joy. Only in certain things, but not Chas v'Shalom to become depressed. You're not allowed. You have to have simcha and avodas Hashem. So according to this, we could answer the Rambam, says in the Mukei Chaim, the Munkatcher. Why? He doesn't bring Mishenichnas Adar Marbim Besimcha because his darke b'kodesh, the way the Rambam is to give you halachas. It's a sefer halachas. He doesn't tell you these generalities. However, the Munkatcher says that's not a good answer. I was thinking to answer this, but it's not really a good answer. Because We know that Rambam in the end of Hilchas Lulav brings the law of Simcha. And in the end of Hilchas Yisori B'ri, he speaks about the law of Taras HaMachshava. You have to have pure mind. He does speak about generalities. And Hilchas Deis tells you how you meant to feel. So the Rambam, of course, could have brought Mishenichnas Adar Marbim Besimcha, just tell you generally to be happy. Al Kain Adayin Tzorachin, the matter still requires Iyun. And he remains with the Tzorachin. Says the Rebbe, in those places in Chelek Yud Aleph, it's very brief. In Shabbos Vayakel, it's very spelled out. Sich of Shabbos Vayakel, Tavshin Lamed Aleph. In Hanoch, it's not a Mogidik Aseh. The Rebbe says like this. I'm going to. The Rebbe says like this: that where does this mitzvah come from? Mishenichnas Adar Marbim Besimcha. Who said it? So the Gemara Masechta Tainis Daf Chof Tes Amud Aleph, it says Amar Rav Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda, Breider Rav Shmuel Bar Shilas Mishmei de Rav. So the key thing you got to know here is it was said in the name of Rav. But even the combination of who said it in the name of Rav. Rabbi Yehuda, the son of Rav Shmuel, the son of Shilas, said it in the name of Rav. So it's said in the name of Rav, the same way when Av comes in, we reduce Simcha. Similarly, when Adar comes in, we increase Simcha. Right? There's another Maimer Chazal with that same combo. Rabbi Yehuda, the son of Rabbi Shmuel, the son of Shilas, in the name of Rav, and this is in Masechta Shabbos Daf Lamed Amud Beis. The Gemara brings there two psukim from Keheles. Shleima HaMelech in the book of Keheles has a pasuk that says, "V'shabachti ani es hasimcha." I praise joy. It's a great thing. Great thing. Joy is a great thing. But there's another pasuk that says the opposite. L'simcha maza isa. What's joy all about? Like, why are you joyous? Hello. What are you rejoicing about? Is joy good or joy isn't good? And comes there Rav Yehuda, the son of Rav Shmuel Bar Shilas, in the name of Rav. It says Leikash. It's not a question. Depends what you're talking about, right? There's two kinds of simcha. There's a simcha of mitzvah. Great. That Shleima HaMelech says, "Shabachti ani es hasimcha." I praise the simcha. And then there's a simcha, just regular simcha. Be joyous. That Shleima HaMelech says, "Well, hey, what are you rejoicing about?" That's the shitta brought in the name of Rav. So now comes that Rav Yehuda, the son of Rav Shmuel Bar Shilas, in the name of Rav, and he says, "Hello, when Adar comes in, you must be joyous, just stamazay, not just always. You have to be joyous about mitzvahs." That's what he said in Masechta Shabbos. Comes Chodesh Adar, you got to be joyous, just stamazay. It's a month of joy. You don't need a mitzvah. You don't need to be involved in doing an individualistic mitzvah, but it's a time of joy. Just stamazay also. Where I told you, Masechta Shabbos, that Shleima HaMelech rejects joy. Chodesh Adar, even in that circumstance, he embraces joy and encourages joy. At the Rambam, however, we know that the Rambam says, doesn't paskin like that about Simcha. The Rambam says Simcha is always a way to go. In Hilchas Deis, very clearly, what does the Rambam say in Hilchas Deis? Mitzvah al kol adam liyesol me'ach tamid. It's a mitzvah, a person always to be joyous. Stam, even without doing a mitzvah. Mitzvah, of course. He said, in mitzvah, he said elsewhere, the Avedis Hashem has to be done with Simcha. But in Hilchas Deis, he says, the demeanor of a person should always be a demeanor of joy. So he's not paskining like Rav about joy. You always have to be joyous. Rav, in other words, in the name of Rav, it was said that joy, stamazay, is not good. You usually got to be a stern guy. Comes Adar, he tells you, Adar, you got to be a joyous guy. The Rambam says you always got to be a joyous guy. So I don't need to bring that chiddush of Rav. It was just l'shitosei, according to his opinion, where he's not you. So he doesn't have to bring this. The Shulchan Aruch also. We know that the Ramah added on the Shulchan Aruch, v'toiv leiv mishta tamid. You always got to be happy. A toiv leiv mishta tamid. Somebody, it goes both ways. If you're happy, you're always feasting. If you're feasting, you're happy. And yet, in other words, the demeanor is you're supposed to be happy. That's what the Mechaber, that's what the Ramah, that's what they hold. So also, you don't have to bring Mishenichnas Adar Marbim Besimcha. Always you got to be Besimcha. So says the Rebbe. I frek the Rebbe. What about the Magen Avram? So why does he bring? What was he holding? So the Rebbe goes here into a hesber. He says the Magen Avram came at a later time. We know the Magen Avram was a Makubal. He quotes Tarizal. The reason that Kabbalah and Chochmah is Stara, and the reason why Chassidus is Nizgala is why? Because there's a lot of Cheshach. A lot of Cheshach means it's not so easy to be joyous. So to maintain the standard demeanor of joy that used to be the Rambam and the Mechaber comes a little bit later, and the Magen Avram is later, and there's more darkness. How do we know there's more darkness? Because we see him more openly talking about Kabbalah. He brings from the Shara Kavanas of the Arizal. Yeah. So it's more difficult to be joyous. So he brings already, but comes Chedesh Adar, we have a special help from heaven to be joyous, and that's why he emphasizes the joy, which we may not be able to achieve standard, and the Rambam expected us to always achieve it. Could be now, when there's more darkness, comes Chedesh Adar, we need to emphasize the joy even more. Right? Even Reshus. So what we're left with is, the Rebbe was masbir to us in a clear-cut way, that a clear-cut hesber why the Rambam and the Mechaber don't bring it, because in their opinion, it's only needed, according to Rav, who says you're generally not supposed to be in a happy demeanor. Comes other, you got to be besimcha. The Magen Avraham adds it because it may be difficult for us at these days to achieve that simcha that was achievable standard in Hilchos days and Rambam. So now we say that we have an extra added oomph and power to be besimcha chedesh Adar. And then I'd just like to re-emphasize that Rebbe quotes in many places, I think, that what the Munkacher in the Nimukei Rechaim says, and I think it's Shar Yisachar, but what the Munkacher says, that the Simcha, the reason there's no clarification as to what to be joyous in when the month of Adar is because whatever makes you joyous, of course, what's Mutar Pi Shulchan Aruch, obviously, that's what you should be doing in the month of Adar. Have a very joyous month of Adar, and you know what, once we're talking about Simcha, let me just add, I added this because it was our son's birthday on Chavdalet Tevis. He had his bar mitzvah, so I wrote this up as a pilpul. I pointed out that the Tzemach Tzedek writes as an Igeres. It's Igeres, in the Igeres of Tzemach Tzedek. There's two girses of that Igeres. But one of the things he writes there is the last Ma'ariv of the Alter Rebbe. That means in Kfar Piena, a few hours before he passed away. It was winter, so you figure Ma'ariv was pretty early, maybe 4:30 when the Shabbos go out in Ukraine in the winter, very early. And the Alter Rebbe passed away, we know, 10:30, what was it? We know the time. But the last Ma'ariv that Tzemach Tzedek was davening morosely, was davening without simcha. The Alter Rebbe told him, he waited till he finished, and he told him, you should never be like that. And he told him the Torah of the Magid, that Kidmus Adam Olav Milamayla, that the way you look, that's the way Hashem looks down at you. You create the demeanor. We know that Rebbe would bring this from the Zohar, always. That Tochazi, that it's Kegavno Dileila, the way our face is, that's the way Hashem, so to speak, shines down on us. If Chas v'Shalom we're agitated, there's an agitated energy that comes down. If we're besimcha, there's a simchatic energy that comes down. But think about when the Tzemach Tzedek was told this by the Alter Rebbe. And in that same letter, he talks about the Nekuda of Tracht Gut V'Zayin Gut, because he was writing the letter to somebody who wasn't well, saying, you have to think, it's going to be good, and don't be scared. How can you not be scared? By moving your thoughts away, thinking good things. So we're talking in a month that body mazle, it's a healthy thing, but I just want to point out this Nekuda that the Alter Rebbe was telling that this one of the last things we heard from the Alter Rebbe comes out. And he's telling that somebody, you figured that Tzemach Tzedek felt this is not such a good situation. Maybe he felt something last Ma'ariv with the Alter Rebbe's presence. The Alter Rebbe says, no, you have to be besimcha. So let us all be besimcha. And we know the Rebbe said in our times the simcha is an aveda and it brings the geula. We should be zeicha to simcha selam al reisham. Afreilich and chedesh Adar.